In the endless silence of space, a blue planet once called Earth turned slowly beneath the dying light of its sun. Once it had been full of life, color, and dreams. But that time was over. The Galactic Union had come, a vast alliance of alien civilizations that ruled the stars. They looked at humanity and saw nothing but danger. They said humans were too violent, too unpredictable, too emotional to join the galaxy in peace. So they decided to erase them before humanity could rise any higher. The attack began without warning. One night the sky filled with fire. Thousands of alien warships appeared in orbit, their weapons glowing like small suns. In a single hour, the cities of Earth became oceans of flame. Humanity fought back, desperate and brave. Fighter jets, missiles, railguns, everything they had was launched into the void. But their weapons were nothing compared to the Union's technology. Shields shattered, armies fell, and the proud cities that once reached for the heavens turned into burning craters. Across the continents, chaos ruled. Communications failed. Nations collapsed. The oceans boiled where orbital strikes hit. Billions died in the first few days. Families ran into shelters that would never open again. The survivors could only watch from underground bunkers as alien ships filled the skies. The invaders were efficient. They did not just destroy Earth, they broke it. They wanted to crush not only the body of humanity, but its spirit too. When the fire stopped, the aliens landed. Towering creatures in armor of silver and black walked the ruins, collecting the living. They called them salvage. Men, women, and children were chained and loaded into cold metal ships. Earth became a silent world, stripped of its hope. The Galactic Union declared the operation a success. The message spread across the stars. The dangerous species known as humanity had been neutralized. But the Union was wrong. Far beyond the reach of their censors, a small fleet of human ships had escaped the slaughter. They were led by an old military vessel called Ark Nova, once a colony transport ship. It had been damaged in the first battles, but its captain refused to surrender. With a handful of surviving warships and a few thousand refugees, they fled into the dark corners of the galaxy, far beyond known space. They were hunted, but they kept running. The humans hid in nebulae and asteroid fields, vanishing from every scanner that searched for them. Life in exile was brutal. Their food supplies ran low. Many ships failed and drifted into the void, never seen again. Children grew up never knowing what blue skies looked like, but the fire in their hearts never died. They told stories of Earth, of oceans, of laughter, of sunlight. They told stories of the day the sky burned and how they would one day return. The young ones listened and made a promise to their ancestors. Humanity would not die in silence. The Galactic Union forgot them. To the aliens, humanity was nothing more than a sad footnote in history, a failed species that could not control its rage. But out in the cold dark, the survivors changed. They learned. They adapted. They rebuilt old ships using stolen technology. They experimented, tested, and improved. They learned to move without being seen, to build without being found, and to fight without being heard. Generation after generation passed, and the survivors became something else. Stronger, smarter, colder. The pain that once broke them had turned into steel. Centuries later, in a hidden system surrounded by ice rings, the descendants of those refugees stood before a new fleet. Ships of black alloy and burning orange light waited in silence, their engines humming like caged beasts. The humans no longer looked like the broken race their ancestors once were. Their eyes carried the same fire as the stars outside. They had built a new kind of civilization, one forged by vengeance and loss. They named their world Haven 9, but in the shadows it was called the Forge. On the bridge of the new flagship, Commander Adrian Kale stood staring at the stars. Before him floated the insignia of the Galactic Union, a symbol that had haunted humanity for centuries. Around him, officers in dark armor waited for his word. "Our ancestors built this fleet," Kale said quietly. "They built it with their pain. They built it for one reason." His voice hardened, echoing through the ship. "To make the galaxy remember us." The crew said nothing. They didn't need to. Every one of them carried the same wound, the same memory. Earth was not forgotten. The names of their fallen were written on the walls of every ship. Each engine burned with the power of that memory. They had been broken once. They would not be broken again. Outside, the fleet powered up. The stars reflected on the black armor of their ships, making them look like predators moving through the night. The engines glowed brighter as the fleet rose from the icy shadow of Haven 9. A new signal went out, strong, sharp, and full of purpose. For the first time in 300 years, a human transmission crossed the void of space. It carried no greetings, no words of peace. It carried only a warning: humanity lives. In that moment, somewhere across the galaxy, alien sensors caught a faint reading, a human signal. The Galactic Union dismissed it as impossible. Just a glitch, they said, just old ghosts. But deep down, some remembered the screams of the past, the war, the fire. Fear spread quietly through the stars once more. And out in the dark, where light barely touched, the humans prepared. The engines of the Ark Nova roared back to life. Old wounds began to ache again. The ghosts of the fallen whispered across the stars. Humanity had been broken once, but now they were coming back. They had sworn one thing and one thing only: humanity would return. In the cold darkness of space, far from any known star, the last human fleet drifted in silence. Centuries had passed since the fall of Earth. Yet among these few surviving ships, the memory of that terrible day still burned like fire. They had escaped with nothing. No home, no allies, only pain and anger. For generations they wandered the void, searching for a place to begin again. They finally found it on a frozen planet orbiting a dying sun. The surface was endless ice and storm, but beneath it, there was safety. Caves of metal and warmth where they could hide from the galaxy that had hunted them. They called this world Haven 9, though there was little haven in it. Life was hard. The cold killed the weak, hunger tested the strong, and the children grew up with eyes that had never seen sunlight. Yet, even in this harshness, humanity survived. The survivors built small cities beneath the ice. They repaired their damaged ships and learned how to use alien technology. Over the years, they collected fragments from wrecked ships, old data cores, and forgotten machines. Human engineers working in freezing tunnels and dim light began to understand the secrets of the Galactic Union's technology. They didn't just copy it, they improved it. Humanity had always learned fast. Now they learned with a purpose. The people of Haven 9 had no leaders at first, only survivors. But as the decades passed, one voice began to rise. A council formed from the descendants of Earth's last soldiers, scientists, and captains. They called themselves the Council of Vengeance. Their goal was simple: prepare for the day when humanity would rise again. Under the Council's guidance, humans began to build something new. Deep in the icy caverns, shipyards grew like steel forests. New warships took shape, larger, stronger, and far deadlier than anything Earth had ever built. They used alien designs as a base, but the human touch made them terrifying. Their armor was black as the void, and their engines burned like orange suns. These ships were built not just for war, but for revenge. As the years turned into centuries, the people of Haven 9 changed. Their bodies adapted to the cold, their minds sharpened by hardship. They became disciplined, united by one purpose. Every child was taught the same stories: of Earth, of the invasion, of the betrayal. Every adult carried the same promise: never again. Humanity would never kneel again. The old ship Ark Nova, the last survivor of the Earth fleet, became the heart of their new civilization. It was rebuilt again and again until it became something almost alive. A ship that carried the memories of all humans who had died for freedom. The walls were engraved with names of the fallen. When someone passed away, their ashes were sealed into the ship's alloy, making them part of its body forever. It was said that the ship's engines roared with the voices of those who had perished long ago. But Haven 9 was not just about survival anymore. It had become a forge, a place where rage was shaped into power. Human scientists developed new weapons that could pierce the strongest shields. Their soldiers trained in gravity chambers to fight on any world. Their pilots learned to control ships with instinct, almost as if the machines were extensions of their bodies. And through it all, the Council watched. They knew they could not stay hidden forever. They waited for a sign, a signal that would tell them the time had come to reveal themselves to the galaxy once more. One day, that signal came. It started as a faint transmission, caught by one of Haven 9's deep space scanners. A familiar tone echoed through the static, a communication frequency once used by the Galactic Union during the war. The room fell silent as technicians brought it on screen. The signal was weak, ancient, but clear enough to read. It came from a distant system, far on the edge of Union space. It was an automated beacon from a Union mining world. Commander Adrian Kale, the leader of Haven's defense fleet, stood before the display. The light from the monitor reflected off his scarred face. His voice was calm but heavy with meaning. After all these years, he said, they still breathe the air of our dead world. They still think we are gone. He turned to his officers. They were wrong then. They are wrong now. The room filled with murmurs of excitement and fear. For generations they had dreamed of this day, the moment humanity would rise from the shadows. But none of them truly believed it would come. Now it had. The council met in secret chambers beneath the ice. Every member knew what the signal meant. They could stay hidden and live in peace, or they could act and risk everything. The vote was close, but the decision was clear. Humanity would move. The hangar bays opened, releasing waves of black steel into the void. Engines lit up like burning suns as the new fleet took shape in orbit. From a distance, the formation looked like a storm, a dark cloud spreading across the stars. Commander Kale stood on the bridge of the Ark Nova, his eyes locked on the holographic map of the galaxy, glowing red where the Union still ruled. They broke us once, he said softly. They burned our home, but fire doesn't destroy everything. Sometimes, it forges something new. As he spoke, the fleet began to move, engines roaring, cutting through the blackness of space. The humans of Haven 9 watched from the surface as bright trails of light stretched across the sky. They didn't cheer. They didn't cry. They simply stood in silence, knowing what this moment meant. Far away in the heart of the galaxy, the alien empires lived in peace, unaware that the ghosts of humanity were coming. The hunters had become the hunted. The forgotten species was returning, stronger, colder, and ready to reclaim what was once theirs. And somewhere deep inside the Ark Nova, the old transmission from Earth played again. A simple recording, thousands of years old. It was the voice of a human child whispering, "We will come back." The engines thundered as the fleet disappeared into hyperspace. They were done hiding. Humanity's rebirth had begun. The stars above the frozen world of Haven 9 shimmered like distant memories. For generations, they had been symbols of loss, each light a reminder of the home humanity had once had, and the countless souls who never saw the stars again. But tonight, those same stars witnessed something different. They saw movement. They saw human ships, sleek and black, rising from the icy clouds into the void. The fleet was vast, hundreds of ships built in secret, each one a monument to pain and patience. Their hulls bore the scars of centuries of exile. Their engines burned with the fury of a species that had once been enslaved. For the first time in 300 years, the humans of Haven 9 were leaving their hidden world behind. Commander Adrian Kyle stood on the bridge of the Ark Nova, humanity's flagship. Around him, officers in dark uniforms worked silently at glowing control panels. The hum of the ship's engines echoed like a heartbeat through the metal walls. Kale's eyes were locked on the holographic display before him, an image of the galaxy. In the center was the insignia of the Galactic Union, still shining proudly after centuries of rule. He raised his hand slowly, tracing the route toward Union space. "We've hidden long enough," he said quietly. "It's time they remember who we are." No one on the bridge spoke. Every officer had family who had died in the invasion of Earth. Every one of them carried that pain. And now, for the first time, they were taking it back to the stars. The fleet moved silently through the darkness, using cloaking systems developed from stolen alien tech. Their course was direct, a return to the same region where Earth had once stood proud. But when they arrived, they found only dust. The blue planet was gone, shattered long ago in the final bombardment. All that remained was a glowing ring of debris orbiting a dim sun. Cal watched the view through the bridge window. The remains of Earth floated like ashes. No sound came from the crew. Even the hum of the engine seemed to fade. "This was our home," Cal said, his voice almost breaking. "And they turned it into a graveyard." For a long moment, no one moved. Then Cal straightened his posture. "Let the galaxy see what rises from its graves," he ordered. The fleet powered up its engines. Orange light spread across the void as hundreds of ships aligned into battle formation. At the heart of it all, the Ark Nova released a signal, a pulse of energy that spread across nearby systems. It carried a simple message in every galactic language. "We are the children of Earth. On dozens of alien worlds, communication centers detected the strange signal. Scientists scrambled to trace it, but the coordinates led to a dead zone, a place they believed uninhabited for centuries. The Galactic Union's leaders were confused, then nervous, and finally afraid. Reports began to spread. Outposts on the edge of Union space were going dark. Patrol fleets vanished without a trace. Mining stations stopped responding. At first, the Union thought it was a technical fault. Then they received the first transmission from the frontier, a single image of a black warship, human in design, before the signal cut to static. Panic spread quickly. For centuries, the galaxy had lived without fear of humans. They had erased them from history books, called them extinct, a failed species. But now, those forgotten ghosts were tearing through their borders, and no one knew how. Meanwhile, the human fleet continued its advance. They did not speak, they did not boast. They simply moved with purpose. For every world they reached, the message repeated, "We are the children of Earth." In one system, a small alien defense fleet tried to stop them. 20 ships against the human armada. The alien commander demanded their surrender. The humans didn't answer. Instead, the Ark Nova opened fire. In moments, the alien ships were gone, vaporized before they could even raise their shields. The battle lasted less than 3 minutes. The surviving aliens on nearby planets watched from the surface as the human fleet passed silently overhead. No occupation, no communication, just a fleet moving like a storm across the stars. Some whispered that it wasn't an army, it was judgment. Inside the Ark Nova, Kale stood before a massive window watching the explosions fade behind them. "No celebration," he said to his crew. "This isn't victory. This is only the beginning." His second officer, a young woman named Mira, looked at him. "Sir, how far will we go?" she asked softly. Kyle turned toward her, his eyes dark and calm. "As far as they went," he said, "until every world that cheered when Earth burned knows what it feels like to be afraid." Back on Haven 9, the remaining humans watched the transmissions with pride and fear. The Council of Vengeance had achieved what many thought impossible. Humanity had returned to the galactic stage. But they also knew what that meant. The Union would not take this quietly. War was coming, and it would burn across the stars. In the halls of alien governments, panic spread. Leaders argued whether to fight or flee. Some still refused to believe the rumors. "Humans can't survive that long," one minister shouted. "They're animals. They're myths." But others knew better. They had seen the old records. They remembered what humans were capable of when cornered. And so across the galaxy, a single truth began to spread like fire. Humanity had returned. The once broken species, scattered and forgotten, now moved like a shadow war through the stars. Their ships carried no flags, their soldiers no mercy. The Galactic Union had destroyed Earth to end a threat. But instead they had created a legend. In every corner of space, one message echoed through comm channels, whispers, and fear-struck broadcasts. "They're back." And in the silence of his command deck staring into the endless dark, Commander Kale whispered the words that every human carried in their hearts. "This time, we decide who survives." The black void of space was calm. Too calm. The stars glittered like diamonds across the endless dark, but beneath their beauty something terrifying moved. A storm of metal and fire drifted through the galaxy, humanity's fleet. The alien worlds that once ruled over humans never saw it coming. Their sensors barely detected the movement before their skies were filled with shadows. Massive warships, black as midnight and burning with orange thrusters, appeared above their planets. To the people below, it was like the universe itself had turned against them. Commander Adrian Kale stood on the bridge of the Ark Nova, eyes fixed on the holomap. Around him, red dots marked enemy fleets, each one a reminder of the old Galactic Union that had enslaved his ancestors. He spoke quietly, but his voice carried through the entire command deck. No mercy for the slavers. The first strike began. Human ships launched from hyperspace in tight formations, moving with deadly precision. The aliens tried to respond, firing plasma bolts and energy beams. But the humans were faster. Their ships darted between shots, returning fire with weapons that glowed like miniature suns. One alien commander shouted through his communicator, "They're just humans. Primitive species. Fight back!" His words were drowned by the explosion that tore through his fleet seconds later. From orbit, The battle looked like a storm of orange and white light. The alien ships broke apart, their fragments burning in their own planet's atmosphere. For the first time in centuries, the Galactic Union faced true fear. The human fleet didn't speak. They didn't broadcast demands or threats. They simply moved from system to system, crushing every fleet that once flew under the Union banner. When the first planet fell, the humans didn't invade. They didn't conquer. They just destroyed the Union's military stations and left a single transmission behind. A repeating message in every language of the galaxy: judgment has begun. Across the stars, the message spread faster than light. Alien leaders panicked. Governments that once ignored the humans started preparing defenses. Fleets were recalled, alliances were made, but it was too late. The humans were everywhere, silent, efficient, unstoppable. The Galactic Union's Council called an emergency meeting on their capital world, Virel Prime. Dozens of species gathered in the Grand Chamber, shouting, blaming each other. "They're terrorists," one shouted. "No, they're ghosts," another hissed. "They should be extinct," screamed a third. But deep down, every one of them knew the truth. The humans had not been destroyed, they had been reborn. And now the broken species they once enslaved had become something far more dangerous. As panic spread through the council, a new report came in. A live feed appeared on the central screen, a fleet of human warships orbiting the planet Thrin 4, one of the old slaver worlds. The video showed a city in chaos, civilians fleeing as the sky filled with black ships. Then came the voice, calm, emotionless, human. "For 300 years you called us monsters. You made us slaves. You erased our name. Now you will remember it again." Moments later, the transmission ended in static. When communication was restored, Thrin 4 no longer existed. It had been erased from the stars, its surface turned into molten glass. The Union fleets tried to regroup, but the humans struck everywhere at once. They used stealth technology that no alien sensors could detect. They appeared, attacked, and vanished like shadows. Entire sectors went silent within days. On the Ark Nova, Commander Kyle stood before the viewing window as another planet burned below. His officers watched in silence. "Sir," one of them said softly, "they're calling us the Deathborn." Kyle smiled faintly, though there was no joy in it. "Let them call us what they fear most," he replied. "We were born in death, and now we bring it back to them." But even as the fleet advanced, there were whispers of something greater, something hidden deep within the Galactic Union. An ancient weapon, one that had ended entire civilizations before humanity's fall. Kale knew it was only a matter of time before the aliens used it. The Council of Vengeance had warned him, "The more we strike, the closer they will come to unleashing their last defense." Still, Kale pressed forward. Humanity had waited centuries for this moment, and no threat could stop them now. The humans had no intention of conquering worlds. They didn't want to rule. They wanted justice. And for the first time, justice was coming to the galaxy that had thought them extinct. In the following weeks, systems that once thrived under the Union's rule fell silent. Space stations drifted empty. Trade routes vanished. Every alien who once looked down on humanity now whispered their name in fear. And through it all, the humans never stopped moving. Their black ships cut through the void, engines burning bright like fiery wings of vengeance. They left behind only silence, wreckage, and that same haunting message repeating on every frequency. Judgment has begun. Far away, in a hidden sector, the alien high command activated a sealed chamber. Inside lay the Union's final weapon, something ancient, massive, and terrifying. The countdown began. Back on the Ark Nova, Commander Kale stared at the stars, unaware of the trap that awaited him. The bridge lights flickered as reports came in. Alien fleets regrouping, energy spikes detected across multiple systems. For the first time, Kale's heart felt heavy. He turned to his crew and said, almost to himself, "The galaxy still has one secret left. And it's waiting for us." The engines flared and the fleet changed course. The next battle would not be like the others. Humanity had become the hunter, but soon they would face the galaxy's deadliest weapon yet. And in that dark silence before the storm, the voice of humanity whispered across the stars, "We were broken once. Never again." Deep within the galactic core, the air around Virel Prime trembled with fear. The once proud capital of the Galactic Union, built with floating towers and rings of light, was now drowning in chaos. Every communication channel was filled with the same desperate words, The humans are coming. The Union had never known terror like this. Entire sectors had gone silent. Fleets that once ruled half the galaxy were gone without trace. The humans, those primitive creatures they had enslaved long ago, had become shadows in the dark, unstoppable and silent. Now the Union prepared its final defense, the Omega Defense Protocol. It was a weapon built long before the fall of Earth, a machine of unimaginable power that even the Union feared to use. Buried deep beneath the surface of Virel Prime, it was said to be capable of destroying entire solar systems. The aliens had sworn it would never be activated again, but now as the human fleet moved closer, their fear left them no choice. Commander Adrian Kyle stood on the bridge of the Ark Nova, watching as his ships cut through the stars. The humans had won battle after battle, but Kyle knew this kind of victory came with a price. He could see it in his crew, the quiet exhaustion behind their eyes, the way they stared at the stars like ghosts. Vengeance had given them purpose, but not peace. The communication officer turned suddenly, her voice tense. "Commander, we've intercepted a transmission from Union Command. It mentions something called Omega. They're preparing to activate it." Kale's face hardened. He'd heard rumors, old stories passed down from the few human slaves who survived the war centuries ago. "Omega," he repeated quietly. "The weapon that ended the Orion Wars. Before Earth ever fell." A silence filled the bridge. Everyone understood what it meant. This wasn't just a weapon, it was extinction. "Do we retreat, sir?" one of the officers asked. Kale shook his head. "No, we go through it. Humanity didn't crawl out of the ashes just to die running." The fleet jumped into hyperspace, heading straight for Virel Prime. The jump lasted only minutes, but for the crew, it felt like hours. The hum of the engines echoed through the halls, mixing with the heartbeat of everyone aboard. When the ships dropped out of hyperspace, they were greeted by a sight that froze them all. Before them floated the Omega Station, a massive ring-shaped structure orbiting Virel Prime, its surface covered in glowing runes and energy conduits. It pulsed with a light so bright it seemed to tear at reality itself. The air around it shimmered like fire. The Union fleet was waiting, thousands of ships, their weapons charged. The humans had faced fleets before, but never one this large. Kel stared at the colossal weapon. "They built this to end worlds," he whispered. Then louder, "Signal the fleet! All wings, attack formation!" The humans surged forward. The void exploded with light. Missiles streaked through the darkness, plasma beams cut across space, and explosions lit the battlefield like a second sun. The Ark Nova shook violently as a barrage hit its shields. "Shields at 60%, someone shouted. Kale gritted his teeth. "Divert power from the lower decks."
Keep firing!
The battle was chaos. For every alien ship destroyed, more seemed to appear. The Omega Station began to charge, its central core glowing brighter than ever. Energy waves rippled through space, making nearby ships shudder and burn. The human fleet was powerful, but this weapon was beyond anything they had faced. And then, amid the storm, something changed. Deep within the Ark Nova, a dormant AI awakened. The core. It was humanity's oldest secret, an artificial intelligence built during Earth's final days, designed to preserve human knowledge. For centuries, it had remained silent, watching and waiting. Its voice echoed through the command deck, calm and mechanical. "Commander Kale, I can interface with the Omega system." Kale's eyes widened. "You can what?" "The weapon operates on quantum lattice code, human origin algorithms. They used our science to build it. I can take control." The crew exchanged stunned looks. The galaxy had built its greatest weapon on the bones of human technology, and now that arrogance would destroy them. Kale gave a sharp nod. "Do it." The AI pulsed through the network. Lines of alien code flashed across the monitors. The Omega's glow flickered, dimmed, then flared again, but this time the energy patterns changed. The alien fleet didn't notice at first, but the humans did. The weapons targeting systems turned, not toward the human ships, but toward the alien armada itself. "Core, what's happening?" Kale demanded. "Control acquired. Omega now obeys human command." On Virel Prime, the alien council realized too late what had happened. Their own superweapon had turned against them. The last message from the surface was a scream of disbelief before the connection cut to static. In a burst of light that outshone 1,000 suns, the Omega Station fired. A wave of pure energy swept through space, erasing everything in its path. The alien fleet disintegrated, their ships burning into dust. The surface of Virel Prime melted like wax. The Ark Nova and its fleet barely escaped the blast radius. The humans watched in silence as the light faded. Where once the heart of the Galactic Union had been, there was now only emptiness, a single glowing sphere of gas and debris drifting through space. No one spoke. The vengeance they had dreamed of for centuries was now complete, but there was no triumph in their faces, only silence. Kale stood at the window, watching the remnants of the galaxy's greatest empire vanish. They used our knowledge to destroy us, he said softly. Now their own creation has judged them. The crew bowed their heads, not in victory, but in mourning. For all the death, for all the fire, humanity had finally balanced the scales, but at a terrible cost. The AI's voice broke the silence. Commander, what are your orders? Kale looked out at the stars, at the void that had once been full of life. Shut it down, he said. No more death. Not today. The Omega Core went dark. The weapon that had once been the galaxy's greatest threat now lay silent under human control. As the fleet drifted away from the ruins of Virel Prime, Kale closed his eyes. The war wasn't over, not yet. There were still countless worlds that had stood by as humanity burned. And somewhere, deep within the darkness, whispers of another power were beginning to rise. But for now the galaxy was quiet. The judgment had been delivered. And humanity, once broken and forgotten, now stood as the most feared power in existence. The engines of the Ark Nova came alive once more, and as the fleet disappeared into hyperspace, one message lingered on the empty frequencies of the galaxy. The galaxy's greatest weapon now belongs to the humans. The galaxy was silent. Where once the great empires of the Galactic Union had ruled with arrogance and power, there was now only the echo of destruction. The stars that had watched humanity's fall now bore witness to something greater, their rise. The fleet of humanity drifted slowly through the debris of Virel Prime, the ashes of their enemies glowing faintly in the black. Every ship was scarred, every hull marked by the fury of battle. Yet despite all the ruin, the humans aboard felt something they hadn't felt in centuries: peace. Inside the Ark Nova, the command deck was quiet. The red battle lights had dimmed. The hum of the engines was soft now, almost gentle. Commander Adrian Kale stood before the viewing glass, staring at the glowing remains of what had once been the galaxy's most powerful world. For a long moment, no one spoke. The crew didn't know what to feel. They had done it, the unthinkable. Humanity, once enslaved and broken, had brought the galaxy to its knees. But the victory felt hollow, heavy. Kale finally broke the silence. We've destroyed the Union, he said quietly. But that doesn't make us gods. It doesn't make us heroes. It just makes us survivors. His words echoed through the deck. Around him, officers lowered their eyes. They had dreamed of this day their whole lives, raised on stories of vengeance, trained to bring justice to those who enslaved their ancestors. But now that it was over, the fire of revenge had burned itself out, leaving only exhaustion in its place. One of the younger officers, barely 20 years old, looked up and asked, "Sir, what do we do now?" Kale didn't answer immediately. He turned his gaze back to the stars. For centuries, humanity had been running from its past. For centuries, they had been preparing for war. But what came after vengeance? What came after the fire? He exhaled slowly. Now, he said, we build, not empires, not armies, a future. The ship's AI, the core, spoke then, its calm voice cutting through the silence. Commander Kale, transmission channels across the quadrant are open. Multiple species are attempting to make contact. They are offering surrender. And peace, Kale hesitated. The thought of peace felt almost alien after everything they had endured. But then he remembered Earth. Not the burning ruins from old hollows, but the green forests, the blue skies, the laughter of children that lived only in the memories passed down through generations. That was what they had truly lost. Not just a planet and their humanity. Patch them through, he said. The holographic display lit up with dozens of alien faces. Leaders, soldiers, citizens. Some trembling with fear, others silent with guilt. None dared to speak first. They expected rage, demands, executions. But Kale didn't raise his voice. He didn't threaten them. He simply said, "We are not your slaves. We are not your monsters. We are your lesson. The words carried across every open frequency in the galaxy. No anger, no cruelty. Only truth. We came to remind you what fear feels like. What arrogance creates. You enslaved us. You erased us. But we endured. We rebuilt. And now we choose a different path. The aliens stared, some in disbelief, some in awe. Kale's voice grew softer but stronger. We will not conquer you. We will not destroy what's left. But remember this, humanity lives. And we are watching. He closed the channel. The fleet remained silent for a long while, drifting among the stars. Then one by one the ships began to turn, away from the ruins of Virel Prime, away from the scars of war, toward the unexplored edges of the galaxy. Their new destination, the Outer Rim, a place untouched by the Union's influence, a place where humanity could begin again. On the bridge, Mira, Kale's second-in-command, watched as the stars shifted. "Do you think they'll ever forgive us?" she asked softly. Kyle gave a faint smile, though there was sadness behind it. "Forgiveness isn't what we came for," he said. "We came for truth, and truth has been delivered." The fleet accelerated, vanishing into hyperspace. Behind them, the shattered remains of the old galaxy glowed faintly, a reminder of both destruction and rebirth. Years would pass. Whispers would spread through the surviving alien worlds. Stories of black ships appearing suddenly, only to vanish again into the void. Some said they were ghosts. Others believed they were guardians. But everyone agreed on one thing. The humans had changed the galaxy forever. In time, a new alliance would rise, one not built on slavery or control, but on fear-turned respect. And though humanity remained hidden, their message lived on, carved into the stars, repeated in 1,000 tongues across 1,000 worlds. We were broken once, never again. And somewhere, far from the chaos, a new sun rose over a distant world. Its oceans shimmered with the color of home. Its air was clean, its soil untouched. The first new human city stood there, growing under a blue sky that no one had seen for centuries. Children laughed, soldiers rested, engineers built. And at night, when the stars filled the sky, the oldest among them would point upward and whisper to the next generation, "That's where we came from. The dark, the fire, the war." Then they would smile and say softly, "And we survived it all." Because humanity's story had never been about their fall. It had always been about their return. Their judgment was over. Their future had begun. Far beyond the ashes of Virel Prime, the human fleet drifted through quiet space. The war was over, but the silence it left behind was almost heavier than battle itself. The galaxy had changed. The proud empires that once ruled over countless worlds had been shattered, and in the void they left behind, only fear and memory remained. Humanity had risen again, not as conquerors, but as a warning carved into the stars. Inside the Ark Nova, Commander Adrian Kale sat alone in his quarters, staring out at the distant constellations. His reflection in the glass looked older than he felt. The victory over the Galactic Union had cost them everything: ships, lives, souls. For the first time in generations, there was no enemy left to fight. He closed his eyes and remembered Earth. The smell of rain, the warmth of sunlight, the sound of waves, things he had never actually known, memories passed down from his ancestors, fragments of a world lost to fire. Humanity had reclaimed its power, but what they truly wanted was something much simpler: a place to live. A home. A soft chime broke the silence. The ship's AI, the core, spoke in its calm, emotionless tone. "Commander, long-range sensors have detected movement in the Orion expanse." Kyle opened his eyes. "Union survivors?" "Unconfirmed," the AI replied. "The energy readings are unfamiliar." "Not Union technology," Kale frowned. Humanity's campaign had been thorough. No Union fleets had survived. If something was moving out there, it wasn't part of the old regime. "Plot a course," he said finally. "Let's see what ghosts haunt the edges of the galaxy." The fleet changed direction, engines igniting like orange suns across the void. As they moved, reports began to flow in. Strange signals. Artificial structures orbiting dead stars. Automated defense grids that no one had built. It was as if the galaxy itself had begun to awaken. Hours later, the Ark Nova emerged from hyperspace above a dying system. The planet below was cracked and lifeless, its surface scorched. But floating in orbit was something massive, a construct larger than any ship humanity had ever seen. It glowed faintly with energy, its structure alien and elegant, almost like art. Mira, Kale's second-in-command, stepped closer to the viewing screen. "What is that?" she whispered. The core analyzed the object. Unknown origin. Power source stable, however. It is not Union design. It predates their technology by several millennia. Kale's pulse quickened. Predates the Union? That's impossible. Impossible, the AI said, but true. The humans had spent centuries believing the Union was the peak of galactic civilization. But this construct was older, deeper, something left behind by a civilization that even the Union might have feared. Kale ordered a recon team to investigate. Shuttles descended toward the structure, their lights flickering across its metallic skin. As they approached, strange markings glowed beneath the surface, symbols no one could translate. When the first human touched the hull, every system on their ship went dark for a split second. Then a voice echoed through the comms, deep, resonant, and ancient. "You are the children of the fallen world, the ones who defied extinction." Every human on the Ark Nova froze. The signal didn't come through the ship's systems, and it came directly into their minds. Kale steadied himself. "Identify yourself." "We are the architects," the voice said. "Long before your kind was born, we shaped the stars. The Union found our relics and used them to rule. But now their time is over, and yours begins." Kale exchanged a glance with Mira. "Why contact us now?" The voice answered, calm and heavy with meaning. "Because we watched you burn and we watched you rise. You are proof that strength comes not from perfection, but from pain. The galaxy will need you soon. Something far older than the Union is waking." The transmission cut off. The construct dimmed, falling silent once more. For several minutes, no one on the bridge spoke. Then Mira turned to Kale. "Sir, what do we do?" Kale's gaze lingered on the massive, lifeless structure. "We survived slavery. We survived extinction. If something older is coming..." He took a deep breath. "Then humanity will survive that too." He turned to the core. "Mark this system. We'll return, but not yet." "Understood," the AI replied. "Course back to Haven 9. Kale nodded. "Home," he said softly. "Finally home." The fleet turned once more, engines burning through the darkness. Behind them, the mysterious construct drifted in silence as if watching. Its symbols glowed faintly again, not in warning but in recognition. Back on Haven 9, word spread quickly. The humans had found something older than the galaxy's greatest empire, and it had spoken to them. The Council of Vengeance reassembled, not for war but for purpose. Humanity's mission was no longer about revenge. It was about preparing for what came next. Generations later, the story of that encounter became legend. The day the stars themselves spoke to humanity, the day their destiny changed forever. And across the void, in a corner of the galaxy untouched by light, an ancient power stirred. The architect's warning whispered through the cosmos like a dying breath. The galaxy once feared humanity's vengeance. Soon it will need their strength. Back on the Ark Nova, Kale stood before the stars one last time. He smiled faintly, knowing that their story wasn't ending. It was only beginning again. "We were broken once," he whispered. "Now, we build." And with that, the fleet vanished into the light of a new dawn, leaving behind a message written in the heart of every survivor, every ship, and every world that had heard their name. Humanity returned not to rule, but to remind the galaxy what it means to endure. The stars were quiet again. The galaxy, once burning with war, now drifted in uneasy peace. Planets that had trembled under the shadow of the Galactic Union began to rebuild their skies. But among the scattered worlds, a single truth remained. Humanity had changed everything. They had come from ashes, from pain, from centuries of silence. They had brought judgment, yes, but also balance. Now, as the smoke of vengeance faded, a new story was beginning. Aboard the Ark Nova, Commander Adrian Kale stood on the observation deck, gazing into the infinite dark. It had been months since the destruction of Virel Prime, and yet he still saw flashes of that final light in his dreams, the fire that ended an empire. The galaxy had gone quiet after that. Too quiet. Mira joined him, her steps soft against the steel floor. "You can't sleep again," she said gently. Kale smiled faintly. "Sleep feels strange when there's no war to wake up to." She stood beside him, watching the stars. "The Council says new colonies are growing. Haven 9 is thriving. The children have never known slavery." Kale nodded. That's good. They deserve that much. But there was something else in his eyes and something restless. The silence of peace had not brought him comfort. It had only made him listen more closely to the whispers between the stars. Suddenly the core, the ship's AI, broke the stillness. "Commander, I've intercepted a transmission. Unknown origin. Not Union, not Architect," Kale turned. "Location? Outer Rim. System designations unregistered. Signal pattern is unusual. Organic." Mira frowned. "Organic? As in biological?" "Affirmative," Kyle straightened. "Put it on." The bridge lights dimmed as the transmission began to play. At first there was only static, then a low, rhythmic pulse like a heartbeat. Faint whispers echoed through the speakers, layered in hundreds of voices. Then through the distortion a message formed. "We watched what you did, children of Earth. We watched you burn the Union. We watched you awaken the architects. And now we are awake too." The voice wasn't one. It was many. It sounded alive. Like it was breathing through the comms. Mira's hand tightened on the console. "That's not possible." What is that?" The core processed the signal for a moment. Cross-referencing. No match found in any database. However, the signal originates from beyond mapped galactic borders. It is not a recorded message. It's calling us. Kale's heart pounded. The architects had warned them. Something older was stirring. Something that predated even the first civilizations. "Send a probe," he ordered. "I want to see what's out there." "Probe launched," said the core. The bridge fell silent as the feed appeared, a black expanse, darker than any void they had known. In the distance, massive shapes drifted, so large they could only be seen when the probe's sensors adjusted. They weren't ships. They weren't planets. They were alive. Each one pulsed with a faint blue glow, like the slow breathing of a sleeping god. The signal grew stronger, louder, until the entire deck vibrated with its rhythm. "You broke your chains, humans. You took your vengeance. Now you will learn what true power sleeps beyond your stars." The transmission cut off. The room went dark. For a long time, no one moved. Then Kyle whispered almost to himself, "They're coming." Mira turned toward him, her face pale in the faint emergency lights. "Who are they?" Kale's eyes stayed fixed on the empty void. Something the Union must have feared enough to build weapons like Omega. Something the architects couldn't stop. Maybe. The reason the galaxy fell into silence before humanity ever rose. He walked to the center console, his voice steady but quiet. "Signal the fleet. Prepare for immediate mobilization. This isn't over." It never was. Across the Arc Nova, alarms began to echo softly. Not the blaring sirens of war, but a steady pulse, a heartbeat of readiness. The humans of Haven 9 stirred again, feeling that same cold fire rise inside them. Not anger this time, but purpose. As the ships readied themselves, Mira looked at Kale one last time. "You really think we can fight whatever that is?" Kale gave a small, tired smile. "Fight? No. But if the universe itself wants to test us, it'll learn the same lesson the galaxy did." He turned back toward the stars, his reflection burning faintly in the glass. "Humanity doesn't run. Not anymore." Outside, the fleet ignited, black silhouettes against 1,000 suns. Engines flared orange as hundreds of ships lifted from Haven 9's orbit, forming into tight formations. The humans were ready again, not for vengeance this time, but for survival. For unity. For the future. As the Arc Nova rose from the planet's icy atmosphere, the core spoke one last time. "Commander, shall I record a message for transmission?" Kale nodded. "Yes, to all species. To the architects. To whoever, or whatever, is listening." He looked at the dark horizon and spoke the words that would echo through galaxies yet unseen. "We were forged by fire. We were tempered by death. We were broken, enslaved, forgotten, but we endured. And now when the stars themselves tremble, humanity stands ready." He paused, his voice steady and clear. "To whatever comes next, we are not afraid." The transmission went out into the void, spreading like a ripple through every corner of space, through ruins, through civilizations, through the endless dark. And somewhere beyond all known stars, ancient eyes opened. The pulse grew stronger. The old gods of the galaxy stirred from their eternal sleep. They had heard humanity's voice, and the next chapter of the universe had begun.